Hello and welcome to FCF Thursdays, sponsored by the Upside app. Click the link in the description and use our code if you want to sign up today. In case you haven't previously caught an episode, this is a weekly interview series we do with FCF players. And this week we have Chris Robb, a tight end from the Fan Control Football League. How you doing tonight, Chris?
Doing good. How you doing?
I definitely cannot complain.
Right.
I appreciate you coming on tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So normally I would start in chronological order, but I saw a post that you put up a couple weeks ago, and you recently graduated. So I
Yeah,
wanted
yeah.
to throw you a congratulations for that.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
Talk to me about what inspired you to go back to school to ultimately graduate.
Well, I started my master's like right after. Um, well, I started it my senior year of college, so that was what 2017, and I kind of I kind of started it just to get through the season. I had graduated, walked early rather, and I started it, and then I took a year off, and I was like, man, I want to, that would be, it'd be cool to have my master's. Like, I really want to. I don't like, you know, uh, doing things and not finishing them. So I was like, I'm gonna go back. Took a year off, and then I had, the COVID year, the 2020 year. But I really just had to, kind of just focus and lock in. I actually, while I was in the FCF, I was, doing homework, writing essays, and article reviews and projects while in season. So, it was just something I really wanted to do, really wanted to complete, and I'm just glad that I finally finished it. So,
That's awesome. That's
yeah,
awesome. Well, congratulations, man. That's huge. I mean,
I
you got a
appreciate it.
master's and you're playing football. I mean, talk about
Yes, sir.
versatile.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
so, how old were you ultimately when you got involved with football, and what inspired you to play the game?
Um. I started when I was in 7th grade. That was my first year. I didn't play Pee Wee. What really inspired me was, seeing all my friends coming to school with their jerseys on Fridays, in elementary school, and I was like, "Man, I wanna wear a jersey," you know? Uh, but, I played basketball my whole life, up until college. I even was gonna go play I was gonna play both in college, football and basketball, but, basketball kind of, football kind of stuck rather. But, I really just did it because, my friends were in it and they were like, I did it at recess all the time. And they were like, yeah, you should play. Like, you're really good. I was like, I didn't know I would score a lot or whatever, but, did it. And I, just fell in love with it. I love playing, especially in Texas. Like, it's like a huge thing. And, I just kind of stuck with it and, became really passionate about it.
Absolutely. I was kinda surprised to hear that you got into it so late given
Yeah.
Texas and their, reputation
Yeah.
for football.
Yeah, I'm kinda glad I did though, because they take so many big hits early, like, as a kid, and, my brother played, but he didn't really get tackled, but, I see a lot of guys that, that start early and then get burnt out, so, thank God that wasn't the case, and I, started later, and then, now I'm here, so
Makes perfect sense.
right.
So when you first got into football, were you still a receiver or, were you playing some other positions?
Um, I played receiver my whole life. Um, I played D end and receiver in 7th grade, and then 8th grade I played corner and receiver. Um, then they tried to throw me at safety in like my junior year, and like during the spring. But I've played receiver my whole life, and it's just kind of it's kind of just what I am. So
Gotcha.
yeah,
We kinda already talked about this, but growing up in Texas, I'm sure football was kinda top dog even though you
oh
had
yeah,
a love for basketball.
right.
Talk to me about the mentality in Texas when it comes to football. I mean, is it literally all you talk about out there? I mean, like it
I
sounds.
mean, no, like when people like, the movie Friday Night Lights, like that's like a real thing. Like, it's, it's crazy. My high school, we probably averaged like 9 to 10,000 fans a game. That's triple what I, what the attendance was at my college. I think the biggest crowd I ever played in front of in college was probably maybe closer to 20,000 maybe. But my playoff game, my senior year, like the last game I ever played in as a high schooler, we had like 20,000 there. So it's it's definitely a lot. We train hard. In the hot summers, at the time we had two a days, so we did two a days. In the 103, 104. It's been outlawed now though, but we had those, and coaches are passionate, the players are passionate. You have to be, to survive out there. It's like every Friday, you're going against somebody that's going to Texas, or going to like a SEC school, or going to a Division 1, or going to college, and you gotta bring it every single week.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
we've talked to so many guys that have a Texas background on this channel at this point. It's shocking. It
right.
seems like half the football world comes out of Texas at some point in time.
Yeah.
Um, but in high school, you seem to be a dominant receiver. I mean, your senior season, you catch 47 passes for 753 yards and 10 touchdowns. What schools were looking your way after this strong performance?
Actually, they jipped me out of like 100. I actually had like 900 yards. They forgot my last game, so I just want to throw that out there. Yeah, I had like 900 yards and 12 touchdowns my senior year. I had a lot of Division 1 walk-on offers because my I only started my senior year, as far like on varsity rather. So I had like a couple Division 1 walk-on offers, and I had a lot of D2 offers. Then there was a D2 named Texas A&M Commerce. They offered me on signing day, but I had already committed and signed and everything, and it is what it is. I didn't really learn the politics of it. I never really had somebody that went through that process, and then I to like a kind of like an older role model that went through everything. But I learned it. I went through it, and now it's my job to teach. I have a little brother that I helped guide through that situation, even though he ran into the COVID situation, so everything was a little different. Seniors didn't leave, and there were limited scholarship offers. But I kind of feel like I was like that. The guy that took it on the chin, and came back and told everybody like what to do. So I kind of helped out his I guess his grade group, and that's I'm okay with that. So
That makes sense.
yeah,
How old is your brother, and where did he end up going to school?
he's 19. He's at Mary Hard Baylor right now. They just won a national championship. So, and he was a safety and receiver in high school, um, and they just won a national championship this past year. So
Very nice.
yeah,
So you had a somewhat unique run in college, I noticed, where you actually attended from 2012 to 2017, if I'm not mistaken.
yep, yep.
How exactly did that all work out? I mean, I know COVID affected some players after that, but I wasn't really familiar with how you were able to stay in college so
Oh, so
long.
basically, well, yeah, I did 5 years. I broke my leg my sophomore year, so I medically redshirted. So yeah, that's
That
that's
makes
where that
sense.
that's where that year is. Yeah. So you know, I did it. It was like a freak accident. I was training and back at home, and you know, my legs got tangled up with a guy, and broke my leg, and then I had to get surgery. So I had the medical red shirt year, and so that's how that went about.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense now. So you
Yeah.
redshirted as a freshman then?
Yeah, well, I redshirted my sophomore year in class, but I was a freshman, then I redshirted my sophomore year, and then I played the rest of my career. So
Okay, gotcha,
yeah.
gotcha.
Mhm.
Um, so it wasn't until like the 2014 season in which you really got on the field for the first time, and you
Yeah,
ultimately played in 6 games. You logged 3 catches for 23 yards. How
yeah,
did it feel to get back on the field after that? After, like you spoke,
man, it
breaking.
was it made me appreciate everything a lot more. Like just the game can be taken away from you at any point. Um, so I was out there. I cherished every moment. Like, because at that point I was kind of just like you're a kid. You go out there. You don't really assume you're gonna get hurt, or you're gonna do this, do that, and uh, so I really just it really just made me appreciate football a lot more, and it's really just a privilege to be out there instead of like oh, my right, I'm supposed to be out here because a lot of people can't play or aren't able to play, and you just gotta appreciate every snap you get out there. And it felt good to be out there. Like I didn't really catch my wind until um like a year later after that year, or I think it was like maybe just 2 years after that. But it felt good to get back out there, and I was just really really excited.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So as you said, you kind of built up to it the year 2016 season. So in
yeah,
2015, you got a couple firsts out of the way, the first
hmm
multiple reception games of your career.
yeah,
So you had two catches against Quincy, then you had a two-game stretch against William Jewell
yeah,
and St.
yeah,
Joseph's, in which you caught five catches for 56 yards, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
It
something like
seemed
that.
like toward the end of the season, you were kind of like starting to hit your groove. They were
Hmm
working into the offense more, and that really
Yeah.
kind of built up into that 2016 season. So, talk to me about how your role transitioned as the 2015 season ended and into 2016.
So yeah, in 2015, I started, um, but I was like splitting reps. So it was like, was it three receivers? I know two for sure. I was like splitting series with. So I would start the game, and then the guy would come in, and that was okay. But we changed coaches, and the head coach currently, who was my head coach, my last 2 years, his name is Coach Clardy. He was the receivers coach, and he always believed in me. He stuck with me. Even whenever I got hurt, whenever they were trying to like reduce my scholarship and this and that. And that spring going into 2016, there it was a competition. They were like, hey, you know here's what it is. uh it's you and him. And I went in second string that spring, and then came out with the starting job, and never let up. So but it was definitely like kind of like a he had sat me down. He was like, hey, look, this is what it is. um you're gonna have to, prove that you deserve the spot. It's not gonna be given to you. And that's how it all panned out.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So heading into 2016, you obviously had a little bit of a chip on your shoulder when you finally won the job,
Oh yeah.
apparently, because
Definitely.
you opened up the season hot. I mean, week 1, you had 6 receptions for 57 yards and a touchdown. Then week 2 was 7 receptions for 48 yards. And then week 3, you had 4 receptions, 87 yards and a
Yeah.
touchdown. And
Yeah.
then it just kept going. And it was like, I
Right.
think you had 2 games where you were held under 2 catches, and that was it the whole season.
Yeah.
Um, and that was in week 7, I believe it was, when you had that first game hit. And at that point, you already had 27 receptions, 300 yards, a couple touchdowns.
hmm
Talk to me about how your confidence built as the season went after each one of these games.
Well, it was all about me. For me, I'm like a rhythm player, so like I just like being involved. And that first touchdown really kind of like it was like a weight off my shoulders. Like now I can score at the college level. I can do this. I can do that. And it was just kind of like me just getting more confident. I was a starter at that point. We had a really great team. We ended up winning the conference that year. Um, that was the first time ever. But it was just me building confidence, me being more confident in myself, me saying, telling myself like, the injuries in the past. You got to move forward. You got to just keep pushing. And every day at practice, I went at it like it was a game. I practiced hard. I played hard, and my receiver, like we had a really great receiver room. So it was always great competition. It was always you know every receiver was really, really, really good. So it was just like iron sharpens iron at that point. So everything kind of just came to fruition, and it was just a really great year.
That's awesome. So you in this season end up playing 12 games, 43 receptions, 476 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Is that all
Mhm.
correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think so. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's something like that.
Okay, so heading into the 2017 season, obviously expectations for you as an individual were probably pretty high at this point.
Yeah.
How do you, as an athlete, block that out and still continue to perform at a high level?
you just got to realize that you play for you. You can only do so what you can. You can only be the best you can be. You know what I mean? So it's like I don't really. I try not to think about the outside pressures or, but I put so much pressure on myself. So like if I go out and don't have you know X amount of catches or X amount of yards, but I know I gave it my all and I know I ran the correct route or you know had the had a great block on this play or something like that, then I'm okay with that. I just want to win. For the most part, at the end of the day, like I just really want to win. So that's always my goal.
That makes sense. So as I said, 2017, you started off with high expectations. This time, you only play in 10 games, but it begins much the same for you. Excuse me. The first two games of the season, you have 10 receptions for 137 yards and a touchdown. In week three, you're held to just one reception, and it's almost like you took it personally because you will go on a 3 game stretch where you're just on a tear. I mean, 16
Yeah.
passes, 156 yards, and a touchdown. How are you able to be so dominant in this season as well?
It was just just me being a vet at that point. That was that was my senior year, and after that I think I think we played Indianapolis, University of Indianapolis, and had one catch, and I was kind of like fed up, and they started feeding me. I had strung together a few great weeks of practice. I remember those years like it was yesterday, and strung together some practices, and ended up having some success on the field. It's just it was just I guess you could say it was personal. I guess you could say it was personal, yeah. But I was just very hungry to succeed, and I just you know did whatever I could, ran the right routes, watched film. I was in the film room, and that's how it turned out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So ultimately, you finished college on the strength of back-to-back seasons with 40 or more receptions, 430 more yards, and 3 or more touchdowns. What were you hearing about your draft stock at the time?
Well, I got invited to a pro day, um, and I did that one. Talked to a couple teams, but I knew like I knew I probably like wouldn't get drafted or anything like that. I was just trying to get into a camp. Um, but I did a pro day um, in I think it was Missouri Western. So I went to the Missouri Western pro day, did that one. It went okay. Like we didn't really have any like training or anything like that, like pro day training or anything like that. So just went up there, did what I could, and kind of at that point, I came back to Dallas in 2018 and was kind of just trying to get onto a team, arena team or something. I was trying to continue my career. So yeah, that's where I was at after my 2017 year, just trying to get on a team, just trying to. I did whatever I could, so going to tryouts and CFL tryouts and everything. So
Absolutely. So in
yeah.
2019, you end up landing with a team. Tell us what team you land with.
So uh, I was working, and then I ended up getting a call from Quad City, the Steamwheelers in the IFL there in Illinois. So 2019, I signed in September 2019, and then we didn't report till uh, February 2020.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
So, what was your time like in Quad City with the Steamwheelers?
man, I had a blast for the time we were up there. They COVID cut the season short in 2020, uh, but it was a lot of fun. You know made me realize that I can play at the pro level. So, because there's a lot of great guys, a lot of former, NFL players up there. Uh, training camp was fun. I had a hard time adjusting to like, the high motions and everything from in an arena game, but ended up, you know, turning it on at the end of training camp and ended up getting signed. It was a lot of fun. I miss the guy. I still talk to him to this day. A lot of the guys that I played with are, back in Quad City, back with the team. So I still talk to a lot of those guys to this day. It was a lot of fun. I made a lot of great connections, a lot of met a lot of good friends. So it was definitely a good time.
Absolutely. Shout out to Quad City, who will be playing in the
Yeah.
playoffs this upcoming weekend. I'm
Mhm.
actually going to have a Quad City player on Saturday morning. His name is uh, his legal name is Edward Smith, but he goes by Hound Smith Jr. So
Okay,
I think
yeah.
he's a
I
fairly
I
new
I heard
player.
of him. Yeah. I don't know him. I think it's probably like 6 guys on the team that I still remember and still talk to. So yeah. But okay, that's cool.
Absolutely. That's pretty good for a couple years. I mean, the IFL, they turn rosters over fairly quick with guys going up and,
Right.
going to other levels. So I have to ask, I mean, you say you still talk to those guys. I mean, they're the first team that signs you to a contract. Do they still kind of hold a special place in your heart?
Yeah. Yeah. I was really trying to go back up there before I even um got an offer and went to the trial for the FCF. But um, I will always love Quad City. Like I still remember the restaurants that were up there. I still remember the routes to go to practice and everything. There's a lot of it was scary at first because it was my first pro team and uh, drove up there by myself and everything. But those guys made me really feel at home. So yeah, I'm definitely always kind of checking, peeking at the scores, seeing how they're doing. So it's always cool. And I love those guys.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So ultimately, you spend another season in the IFL, and then you spend some time in training camp, I guess.
Mhm.
What team was that with?
The Bismarck Bucks. Yeah, I was up there in training camp. Ended up straining my Achilles uh, during training camp, and it was kind of like a combination of me just kind of just not feeling in place. Like I was in North Dakota, and I'm from Dallas, and I drove all the way up there, and it's kind of just like it's one of those things where I wanted to play football. I was still passionate about it. I guess it just wasn't like the right fit for me, and ended up coming back home. So it was all good.
Absolutely. So
Yeah,
we're gonna shift gears a little bit, and I understand
yeah,
you run your own podcast.
right,
What
right,
is
right.
it called, and where can we find it?
Okay, so it's called the Sports Page Radio. We really talk about national sports, football, basketball, baseball. Um, we're kind of focused on like the DFW area. But we talk about everything. We have uh, social media accounts on Twitter, Sports Page Radio, if I'm not mistaken, and Facebook is Sports Page Radio as well. Um, and I'm a co-host with Ashton Nix. So yeah, he asked me to come on a little while ago, and he actually interviewed me um, for like because he wanted to interview a football player, and some of the listeners were like, hey, you should bring him on more often. And I came on again to talk sports, like as another like interview type thing, and then we ended up doing it like it's like a full time thing now. So we try to put out a show every week, talking about the hottest topics in sports. What's going on. Signings. Different games that happen. So it's a lot of fun. I've been having a lot of fun with that.
Absolutely. So is that like a video form thing, or is it audio?
It's audio, but actually, starting August 1st, we will be on like Roku, and we're connected with Roku, and I think it's like Facebook Live or something like that. So, but yeah, it's we linked up with it's a Let's Talk Sports page, and they have a channel on Roku. So we'll start doing video stuff and live stuff, and it'll be on Roku starting August 1st. That's like behind the scenes news. So, it's kind of like breaking news right now. So,
Oh, very
yeah,
nice.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm excited. It should be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that. I'm
Right.
gonna have to check out the podcast
Oh
for
yeah, for
sure.
sure. Yeah, check us out. Yeah.
Definitely. So back to your football career in
Mhm.
2022, you ultimately land with the FCF. How
Right.
did you ultimately end up there? Was it an open tryout situation?
So it's funny. So a quarterback that was in Quad City, he his name's Caleb Lewis. So he was in the FCF in 2020 2021. Whenever they had the no fans rule and everything. So he ended up in the FCF then. and then randomly he had texted me. He's one of the guys I still talk to, but he had randomly texted me. He was like, "Hey, are you still looking to play football?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and he said, "Well, the FCF is going to be, they're going to have a tryout in Dallas, well, in Arlington, and Arlington's like 35 minutes away from me." So I was like, "Yeah, I'm down." He connected me with a guy. I was able to get a free tryout, and then went, ran my 40 and did one-on-ones, and they ended up signing me. I think it was probably the next day. So
Interesting.
yeah.
So I kind of noticed like you came out of college at 6'4", 205. When did you
Mhm.
start making the transition into like a bigger bodied receiver slash tight end?
Well, I went in as a receiver for the FCF, but I didn't really start putting on. I think I probably hit 220 maybe probably a year and a half ago, because I came out of at the pro day my pro day my senior year, I was 212. But I didn't really start getting bigger until probably 2 years after that. So probably around like 2020, late 2019, I got to about 220, and then now I'm like 230. I fluctuate from 230 to 235.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I mean, you said one of your guys was in the FCF in season one. Did you watch
Mhm.
the first season of FCF before going to this tryout?
I watched a few games. I had a couple guys that I knew that were in the league, um, and then I saw that Johnny Manziel was playing. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna check it out. Um, and you know, it was it was definitely different, but it looked like a lot of fun. It was a lot of lights, cameras, and everything. And I was like, man, that's really cool. Didn't really expect to be in it, but it was cool to watch. So whenever I got the opportunity to try out, I went out there, and I had a really great tryout. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
With the unique way the FCF builds its rosters, I mean, you were kind of designated as a tight end,
hmm
but you said you also played wide receiver. So how exactly did that work?
So I would do tight end. So tight ends played two games. So I would play 2 games, but some of the teams needed like a receiver. But I went in as a receiver, then they moved me. I asked if I could, play both, but I played mostly tight end. But at the end of the year, to like the last few games, uh, I got a few reps at receiver, and I had a few catches at receiver as well. So it was just all about who needed who, and luckily I was with the Stars, and they needed some bigger receivers, because it was kind of like the receivers were pretty small in the team. So it was me and a guy named Levi Shelter. He's also a receiver that transferred to tight end. But the whole tight end room is like, I think it was maybe 12 of us, probably 7 of us were receivers. So we all kind of just kind of gravitated towards being a tight end.
That makes sense. I mean, the way the
Yeah,
FCF plays ball, it
yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
yeah,
So talk to me about you playing 2 games a week. I mean, as a wide receiver
right,
slash tight end, that's a
right.
lot of running.
Yeah, it was tiring. I was, every Saturday I was exhausted. It was, and it definitely depends on when your games are slotted. So like, um, the past few weeks, uh, we had games back to back. So we would play at 1 and then we'd play at 3. So I preferred that, because I don't want to, like, I'm getting out of my sweaty jersey and then I gotta sit around for a few hours. But I definitely preferred playing back to back, even though like it was exhausting. After probably middle of the first half of the second game, you're like, you're like, man, I'm exhausted. You're trying to find things to eat, trying to find Gatorade. It's exhausting, but you just push through, and we did. So
Do you think this uniquely prepares you for the outdoor game?
the FCF, or playing 2 games.
Playing 2 games a week.
Yeah, like I I was in great shape. Like, I'm still in great shape. I it definitely helped, because like it's you play a different game, you're playing different people, or you probably play the same defense because the defense played 2 games as well. Um, but, you're in great condition. You know, you, uh, reach blocks and running post and running wheels, and, it definitely prepares you for sure.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
as we talked about before, at this point, you're 6'4", about 235 pounds.
Mhm,
You could easily, in the right scheme, play in line as a tight end, in the slot, or out wide as a receiver,
mhm.
at either the field or the boundary side, for that matter. Talk to me about the intricacies of both positions that you play and the differences between playing tight end and wide receiver.
So tight end, I know in the outdoor game is more of like being a slot receiver. You do have to, block linebackers. You might have to chip a D in here or there. But for the most part, especially like in the NFL, um, I talked to a couple NFL, personnel guys, and they were just saying like, as long as you're able to kind of, just get in the way, you don't really have to even block amazingly, but as long as you kind of get in the way and hold on for however amount of seconds, like you can survive. So like, I don't really see a difference between um like being a tight end and being a slot. I mean, there is a difference because you run different routes, but a tight end is really just a big slot in the NFL. And then as far as like from the outside, Um, you have your own island pretty much. You're out there, you're going against a corner. Uh, you might be matched up with him all game. And it's just, different routes and different concepts you gotta learn while you're out there. But um they're all kind of the same. I feel like the outside, you get pressed more. You don't really get pressed as a slot and as a tight end. So that's probably the biggest difference is that you get more free releases as a tight end and as a slot receiver.
That makes sense. That
Yeah.
makes sense. So, which teams did you end up playing on this season, given the draft situation and the unique situation where you play 2 games? Was it basically the entire league?
I played on 5 of the 8 teams. The only teams yeah, only teams I didn't play with were the Kingpins, um, Knights of Degen, and then I didn't play with the Glacier Boys. All the other ones I played with though. I have all their jerseys still, so
Gotcha.
yeah.
So, I'm curious, if you had to pick 1 quarterback out of everybody you played with, and I'm not trying to get you in hot water, but
I can't
who
do that, man.
I kinda figured
Right.
that was
Yeah,
gonna be
I
the
mean,
answer.
yeah, I played mostly with, Mitch Kidd and Slade Jarman, so I would say those 2. I played with Slade probably most of like the last 5 weeks or something like that, and I played with Mitch 4 of the 5 weeks, except for the playoffs. So, one of those 2. One of those 2. Yeah.
That's some pretty solid options. I mean, in terms of
Yeah.
FCF quarterbacks, those are 2 of the best in the business,
Right.
so
Yeah.
hard to
Yeah,
argue with either one of those guys.
yeah.
So what are your goals for the future in football, and then as well as your future outside of football?
Well, I wanna, kinda, start my career, I wanna coach, be an athletic director down the line. If the right offer comes, like NFL team wants to try out, like a tryout or something like that, I definitely listen. I'm, focused on, kinda focusing on my career and, trying to start that up right now. Um, you know we'll see. I'm just, I pray on everything, I'm just, thankful for my journey that I've had and, the opportunities that it's brought me and I'm just kind of if it makes sense then I definitely listen to it. um I wouldn't like go to like the IFL or anything like that, like I just it's after playing in the FCF and playing with so many like former NFL players and that I wouldn't do that. um But, it's just me just trying to start my career at this point, and then if the right offer comes, then, I'll listen.
Interesting. So do
Right.
you have interest in returning to the FCO?
Um, I feel like I would. It really like I said, it just has to make sense, like everything has to make sense with the numbers and pay and like I made a a good career. I made a lot of great connections down there. I know the area. Um, So we'll see. Like we'll see how everything goes. How how many teams they add, and just things outside of non-football related. So we'll see how everything goes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I got one last question for you. Well, actually, two last questions, but I'll
Okay.
start with the
Yeah.
first one. Uh,
Right.
if you're the offensive coordinator tasked with putting you as a player in the proper position to succeed in the best possible manner,
Okay.
where do you line up the majority of the snaps, and what offensive scheme do you run?
Um, that's I feel like I can do like I can play all the receiver positions, and I've always felt like that, and like even in college, I feel like I can run like slide and as well as outside. I never really saw myself as a tight end, but like now the outdoor game is you get more stand up tight ends. Your hands not really in the dirt. I can block linebackers, I can block safeties. Um, I probably would say right now I'm either like a tight end or outside receiver.
Gotcha. Very
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, yeah. And I
Very nice.
like I feel like I can stretch the field as well. I'm a big body person. You can just kind of just give me a chance, and I can run routes as well. I like catching the ball and getting upfield. So it's just in that type of scheme.
Gotcha. So kind of like a run and shoot or an air ride type scheme.
Yeah, 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 something like that. Yeah,
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah,
So the last actual question I will leave you with, and this is more of a me to you type deal, not really an interview question, but
right.
we're going to be doing some live XFL draft coverage, and I was interested in asking you to see if you would like to come on and break down some of the picks, if maybe 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes type deal.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, just let me know. I'm down to do anything. Yeah, I'm definitely down.
Cool. Absolutely. I will keep you in mind, and I'll keep you informed with when we get going on it. I got a bunch of stuff in the works, so there's going to be
Yeah,
like rotating personalities, potential players to get drafted, et
right.
cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's exciting, man. Yeah, I'm definitely down.
cool. Cool. Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and let you get out of here tonight. One more time, what's your podcast and where can we find it?
Sports Page Radio. It's on Twitter, Facebook. I'm looking to make an Instagram for it as well. You know, at Sports Page Radio, we have our podcast is on Odyssey and Anchor and Anchor FM. So to be mostly on Anchor, and then we'll be on Roku starting August 1st.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Well, we will definitely check you out. And once again, thank you so much for coming on. I hope you have a great night.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll do it again in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
All right. Have a great night.
All right, you too.